Yeah, how you doing? This is the command post in Tower 2 of the World Trade Center.
Okay.
This is Chief Devlin. I got to get a rundown of the companies. We're in a state of confusion.
All right, for 8087?
Is that the box number, 808?
That's a 2 World Trade.
That's where we're at. Number 2, we're at the South Tower.
Edna, pick up 263. Give this guy a rundown for number 2 World Trade.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, that's engine 211, ladder 11, engine 44, engine 22,
Hold on. Engine 44,
engine 22,
22,
engine 53,
3,
engine 40,
40.
division 3,
Right.
battalion 10, battalion 12, ladder 16, ladder 2, ladder 13, engine 221, engine 23, engine 209, engine 212, 279, 230,
30,
229,
29,
235,
35,
220, 216, 217,
217,
238,
38,
214,
214,
ladder 12,
12,
ladder 118, ladder 7, ladder 24,
24,
high rise 1, battalion 11, engine 74, engine 76, engine 47, engine 58, engine 91, ladder 22, ladder 25, ladder 35, ladder 4, ladder 21, engine 41.
Right, that's good. Is there some way we can maintain this link open?
All right, 10-4.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
9/11, I was just in second grade, like we had just started the school year. So I didn't necessarily learn it, from history books and things like students do now. We were literally in class as planes were hitting the towers, and I remember very distinctly my swimming lessons being canceled, and I couldn't understand that as, a 7, almost 8-year-old.
So at the time, it was a lot of like, something bad happened and we didn't really know what. And then by the evening, we might recall, I was watching the news with my dad, and at 7 years old, that's pretty impactful when you're watching, people jump out of a burning building. But you're not really understanding why.
Very, very Palestinian and Muslim family. And so after 9/11 happened, I feel like Western society really stabbed me in the back personally. And the reason why is because Western society has a very, very jaded image on Islam and Muslim people in general. But 9/11 really took the cake. It just made everyone's perception as, okay, that person is Muslim, so they're a terrorist. And when you have to deal with that and you actually have relatives who are heavily, into Islam and they're Muslim and they wear hijab, and you see them being verbally and sometimes even physically attacked because they're known as a terrorist, it does take a lot on you.
At the time, I was actually working in one of those buildings. However, I was on jury duty, and I could see it from the courthouse. You can see it all happening, and it was very traumatic. To this day, New York, I don't believe has ever been the same.
That day, I have the class. In class, my professor, they let everybody go home. They say you have the airplane to attack the Twin Tower, and I go home.
And so I was in a preschool classroom in an early childhood setting, and I was observing a teacher in the classroom, and the director of the program came into the classroom and started talking about something. She was talking about planes crashing into buildings, and I was like, you shouldn't be talking about these things in front of young children. I think someone asked her a question, and she, indicated that, no, this is real. Like, this is actually happening.
The reason my generation understands 9/11 and the impact is because of what comes after 9/11, which is, the collapse of the market. And then our parents were sitting there struggling. I mean, it affected us because with many of us, you had some parents who were sitting there really losing their jobs left and right.
I think a lot of the younger generation didn't thank God, didn't have to experience it or see it. You know, they just hear about it from what we tell them.
That perhaps my generation has pockets of people who have deep understanding of 9/11. At the same time, I do think that probably the vast majority of my generation probably doesn't understand 9/11.
I think the older generation had space to really conceptualize what's happening, why is it happening, and then also kind of be the perpetrators of that hate and that sometimes bigotry. Gen Z, I think their understanding of what happened is incredibly different because to them it is history. It is in their history books. And so with that, they can really see where the impact was. I think where I stand within the generation, which is that younger end of millennial, I also don't recognize what life was like before. So it's almost like you start off your first memorable parts of childhood with this big bang of confusion and trauma, truly.
I think generations older than mine, could have potentially experienced World War II or Vietnam or Korea, where you've had some experience with the idea that Americans are, being killed as a result of other people's actions. Younger generations who didn't experience 9/11, weren't alive, or were so really young at that point, haven't really ever experienced that.
I don't know that his goal was met or was not met, but I do think if it was to create this division where there's like this us versus them mentality, I think that was accomplished.
From what I remember, it was something really just, he was, I think, in a not really good way, he was objecting to the US's involvement in the Middle East.
I think he was fed up. I think he was tired. And I mean, most people think that he did it for religious purposes, but honestly, I would have to say that if, it was just all him, I genuinely believe that he did this because he was tired of the persecution of his country.
I think it was more retaliation, if you ask me, from what occurred in their country,
To my understanding, Osama bin Laden had Islamic fundamentalist ideas. The root of it, I think he had a genuine resentment toward the U.S. for what the U.S. has done kind of in the region and as foreign policy just across the world.
I would say there's less they could have done to prevent, and maybe this is because of how old I was when it happened, but I think there's a lot that they could have done after the fact that I think still to this day has not necessarily been accomplished.
There was some information shared that there was some knowledge that was available, and I don't know if it just like clearly indicated that this was going to happen and it was ignored, or if it was more like we have some information that indicates it might happen. People make mistakes, and even people who are in places of protecting our national security could potentially make mistakes.
I think 9/11 was inevitable. The matter is the American government and all the other governments behind it are 9 out of 10 corrupt. They're corrupt. Let's be real. And again, like I said, very jaded perception on Islam and just Muslims in general.
I wouldn't say it was inevitable, but it might not have been so drastic, because that was like really drastic. I mean, those buildings were landmarks, and they knew exactly what they were doing and who they wanted to target and what target they were after.
I think 9/11 was inevitable because of what the U.S. stands for and what the U.S. has historically done. The U.S. has had imperialist goals in the Middle East dating back to mid-1900s, perhaps even earlier than that.
9/11 attacks were truly like a huge shift in international relations. seeing, again, attitude shift towards specifically the Muslim population, and seeing these anti-Muslim policies come up, and just the perpetuation of racism that already existed in this country be exacerbated that broadly. And watching, you know, Afghanistan and Iraq turn into bad words, it just, everything was completely shifted after that point.
War in terrorists? Yeah, we have to do that. We have to let them pay the price, and we try to protect everybody in the world.
Our ties are so severed when it comes to the Middle East, and I feel like we've made ourselves out to be less trustworthy than everything, right? Because we said that we went over there to help, to help them. Yeah, they had this, attack on us, but then at certain times when you look at the USA leaving to Afghanistan or Iraq, or just deplorable in the most worst conditions ever, right? We're supposed to be like these trustworthy, I'm gonna help you guys out, and no, we're gonna go there, we're gonna take all your resources, and then we're gonna somehow execute a way to implement so that we get these resources legally, whether you like it or not.
I know that the war on terror was something that required the manufactured consent of the American people. The nations that which we declared war had no part in 9/11, created more resentment within the region. And I also understand the aspect of the war on terror of the amount of Islamophobia that came out of it.
I think it was like the U.S. banding together to get back at terrorists. Do I think it's working? No. We still it looks like we're about to have another major war. So, our troops are constantly out there. They have the secret ops. They have so many things still going on in the world between like our relations with other countries internationally. I don't think it's gotten any better. Another war on terror, I don't think it was beneficial at all.
So I believe, the war on terror was the events that came after 9/11. It was an opportunity for our government to move into a very aggressive occupation of countries, and they used 9/11 as a reason and framed it around this war on terror, which, at least to the public, was the idea that we're hunting for Osama bin Laden.
Kind of coming back to patriotism and how patriotism really boomed with 9/11. I think the war on terror has a direct tie to that. So you think of like the song Proud to Be an American, and how that song came about post 9/11 and was everywhere. It was something that you were constantly hearing. And the USA chants, that pride of like USA.
I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. But I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land.